Well, welcome back to the Bible Recap. Yeah, the Bible Recap Discussion Podcast. Man, trouble getting my words out tonight.
Happens to the best of us.
Monday mouth on Wednesday evening. We are...
Feels like a Monday, though.
We're tackling week 17, and so according to Dawn's countdown, that's 35 left. I already did the math for you.
Thank you.
I will say, when I was going back through this today, I was like, where's our halfway point?
It's not here yet.
Because I was like, we're in July.
We're past a quarter of the way there.
Yeah.
All right,
Where
so...
that? Yeah.
Week 17 is where we're at, and so we've got an assortment of Psalms, and of course, that assortment's in the description box. We were tackling the first...
Depends what we're on.
Yeah. That was actually be on the first opening screen in the list, but also it's in the description box, would be up there. Yeah. First 10 chapters of Chronicles, which we go through a lot of names this time, and then again the assortment of Psalms. And one thing I appreciated she noting in her part of the study is that there'll be some back and forth. So, sorry about that. Some back and forth between this and the Samuels and the Kings readings, and I appreciate that because it keeps the timeline simple for us and for y'all at home. Because if you go through hundreds of years of history, then all of a sudden, let's go to First Chronicles, and we're going to start all the way back here and
come back.
So I appreciate her work on making this work.
Yes, made it easy. That's for sure.
Yes. All right. Well, we're going to turn it over to Dawn, who's turn to read our first question.
And I'll be very honest, you're going to have to help me with some of these names.
I was just thinking the same thing. I got Nimrod.
I did too. I had that one.
And I liked her commentary on that.
Yeah.
Okay, number 1. What does it reveal about God that he gives us glimpses of the stories of Nimrod? Is it Peleg and Achan?
Sure.
I'm guessing it's not. In the genealogies of First Chronicles 1 through 2.
That's how I would pronounce them.
Really?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Well, you could have just said that.
Well, that's why I said sure. Yeah. I was affirming
when I
you.
say sure, it's being smart aleck.
Sure.
Yeah. You got to read the inflection. I said sure. Yeah. I was affirming.
Okay.
Sure. Sure.
Well, get back to the question here at hand.
Do I need to repeat it, or do you remember what it is? Okay.
I just got to put, this is just us really showing that God uses all shapes and sizes for his plan and word. Like Nimrod was a hunter. If I remember right, Peleg. Now I can't remember. I got too focused on how to say it, but like they were very opposites. From what I was reading,
Peleg was when it says the earth was divided, so around the time Babylon.
Okay, that's
not right. Babel. Excuse me.
But it's made it very simple. He uses everyone. He doesn't just pick the strong kings or just the poor. Like he picks everyone in between. It's comforting. I don't know. That's something she asks often, but he uses everyone, not just just the strong. So I really liked that whole day. I was pretty nice, stuck on it. Once you kind of read through her words through this for 113, it kind of made everything start coming together again. So, yeah.
I would say I was quite a bit like your answer. I just thought maybe he was using them, different followers, just showing that he could use all the different followers, or the different people, I guess I should say. They weren't all followers at all time. But he used them in different persons' situations, and that he showed us how to be just and full of grace, even in all those 3 different situations. But then, again, I'm an overthinker. So I had to ask my husband this question. We read Chronicles, and I said, what do you think she's asking here? Because I think you got it. But
yeah.
Well, I think no, yeah, you're on the right track, and to overthink, I'm going to add to it just because how I think. So I would say all of what you have both said to the role of grace and the fact that God uses them in His salvation plan, and she also points out too that this is not my addition, that the genealogies were also as parts of evidence for the exile. But the thing I would add is that, because I think about it because my first degree is in history, is that referencing the events or whatnot might be historical reference points where they fit into the story, because they didn't have history books like we do. A lot of it was oral, but when they did have stuff written down, sorry, my Bible's here, stuff written down to say, Peleg, when the earth was divided. Oh, that's right. That's when Babel, because, the languages were divided. Yeah. Achan, oh, that's right. He's the one who couldn't keep his hands to himself when it comes to the treasure at Jericho when they invaded. Yeah. So it's like, okay, I know that guy. So it's not just a name in a book. They have a historical point of reference. It's like, oh, it's that Achan. Oh, it's that Peleg. Oh, it's that Nimrod.
Every time I read it, I got a little giggle to myself, to be honest.
I thought about how many people you called Nimrod.
Her Looney Tunes reference, I love that.
I know, that was good. Yeah, that was good.
Mm-hmm. So that's what I would add is just might provide additional historical reference points, like to help them identify that person. So that Tyler Osner, since when you're covering hundreds of years, like which Tyler Osner are you talking about? I mean, in my master's degree at seminary, there was 2 other Joshua Johnsons. Which one are you talking about? The tall, bald one. Oh, okay.
All right.
So, all right. Question number 2. David repeatedly preaches the gospel to himself in the Psalms, reminding himself of the truth of God's goodness amid all his trials. How often do your thoughts and emotions lie to you? How often do you need to be reminded of the truth? Have you made this part of your regular prayer life or thought life? If so, what does that look like?
This was one of those that I had to really look deep in it myself, because I'm my own harshest critic always. Mm-hmm. And I always way overthink, even just as simple as relationships with people. I'm a talker, obviously. And so am I annoying them because I'm talking too much? Am I sharing too much? And that's one of the things, it's stuck in my head that I'm doing too much or not enough or whatever, where my emotions are telling me, kind of lying to me there. So this is something I'm still working on today, but my wife is kind of the one that is that truth for me. You are good enough, you're good, or tap me out is what she says. She's kind of helps me. So it's not, I'm stuck in my own head. Mm-hmm. She's kind of my, you're good. So that's been pretty good in my life, but, I've tried to make it a part of my, but I know it's just me almost. Mm-hmm. So it's kind of hard to, I feel make it a part of my prayer life, because I don't want to change my, I don't think there's anything wrong with me talking too much or whatever, but it's just one of those things. It's hard to pray about, I guess. Mm. So, yeah.
I think I fall short daily. So, it is a part of my prayer life, and I think I constantly, even though I know I start a new day fresh and hoping that I don't fall short, but it's always added to my prayer life because I do know I fall short. And not so much my expectations for me or for others, but what I think God expects of me and how I handle myself. So I think my emotions do lie to me quite often, because I tell myself I'm being who I'm supposed to be. But again, I know I fall short every day. Mm-hmm. If that makes sense.
Yeah. Keeping yourself in check.
I don't, but then maybe that's but maybe that's a cop out too. That that I know I fall short, but I am putting that in my prayer life daily. So it's something I definitely need to work on.
Yeah. Hey, we're not not perfect.
Nope.
No.
Nope.
I don't think it's a cop out anyways. I'll say that.
Well, the fact that there's self-awareness on, such things, that's always good, because we've all experienced those sandpaper people that lack self-awareness. So they're like, come on, don't you hear the words that are coming out of your mouth? But back to, the original part of the question, have my thoughts, emotions lied to me? I mean, constantly. That's part of the danger, the temptation of the devil, of sin, to put ourselves down. And I noticed a couple years ago, I developed a tick when I face them. I'll do this, kind of like shaking it out of my head. Like I just nope, like a etch a sketch. Erase that
Delete.
thought out of there. Yeah. And so this is something, my self-awareness, I noticed for myself. Yeah, those jerk my head a little bit. It's like, nope, don't need that thought. I don't care for that.
See, what I noticed is both you two say that you're hard on yourself, that you don't feel like you're enough, or that the devil is working on you. I'm the other way. What does that say about me? I'm sitting there thinking I'm not hard on myself.
Well,
that's just confidence in yourself, though, where that's something
not good either.
No, but it's not, in my opinion, it's not bad either.
Well, you want self-confidence. Trust yourself. You just don't want arrogance.
Yeah.
Your hubris. But part of that for me was being bullied growing up. Okay. You tend to then buy into the lie.
Yeah.
And it could just be something from the past saying, well, you're not good enough. Nope, I don't need that.
Yeah.
Taking every thought captive, as Paul says. And so
I would agree.
As, shake it off.
Yeah.
Taylor Swift, there we go.
Pop culture, right there.
But of course, I grew up with Outkast. Shake it like a salt shaker.
Yeah.
Or shake it like a Polaroid picture.
That is true as well.
I know some of those don't mean exactly, but anyways, that's just, again,
good old
grew up in the
Outkast.
90s and early 2000s, and I won't dig deep into the 80s quite yet. But.
You'd have me on that one, I think. But honestly, it's not
she's refraining comment.
It's not a bad. I've never viewed self-confidence as a bad thing, as long as you don't get too far in, like you said, in arrogance. It makes a huge difference. So, I've never had a great amount of self-confidence because of bullying and things like that. I'm
afraid I was probably the bullier.
Yeah.
Maybe I was the one that bullied people. I don't know.
You would know. I would feel like the people who were bullies know. You definitely know when you've wronged someone as an adult, I should say. As a kid, you probably don't even realize. But because I've definitely had times where I did bully things. I didn't feel like I did something as a retaliation for something else, and those still weigh on me today. I vividly remember doing them, if that makes sense. But I don't know. I guess I could say that's me maybe being on the side of been on that side. So I know how bad it hurts and everything else. But I've tried to reach out to some people that I've wronged and, ask for forgiveness. So that's one thing this has started that has made me reflect more on trying to be a better person and mending some bridges.
I guess when I was, reading this, it was more like, Dawn's a Christian. And so when you put that into that respect, then Dawn should do all Christian things. And I know I don't. Yeah. And that's where I feel like I fall short. It's that if somebody's looking at me like, oh yeah, Dawn goes to church every Sunday and she's this perfect Christian. I know I'm not, but I don't know, they don't know that I'm not. Does that make sense? Mm-hmm. I mean, so I think that's where I went with this, but
yeah, we all have our own answers. Yeah.
But I'm just saying that's where I went with it, is that I put myself in this category of, which she kind of does that later, I think, as we get to the end where she was talking about the whole, which we'll get there. Yeah. I struggled with that question too, but so I might have overthought that one as well. Yeah. It's your turn, Tyler. All
right. Number 3. The tribes of Reuben, Simeon, and Levi were all impacted by the sins of their namesakes. Reuben slept with his father's concubine. Simeon and Levi plotted and killed all the men of Shechem. In Scripture, God often regards groups of his own people as the whole. But since our modern and highly someone's going to have to help me on that one.
Individualistic.
What they said.
I had to do it really slow.
Society favors the notion that of personal rights and responsibilities. Is easy to view God's actions in a negative light. What are some of the positive implications of the way God's people are often regarded as a whole? Until I read this question, I realized we did this throughout the podcast. We would think whenever we had a hard time with something God did, we were looking at the individual, just like what she said here. But we were not looking at the overall whole of what happened. I had examples at the time. I should have wrote them down, but now I can't even think of them. But it kind of gave me the point of we needed to look at the whole, the whole Israelite group when something happened. It was, now I just lost it, but we had to look at the whole group. It's like, I had another example where, sometimes you have to let someone go for the betterment, like a locker room, for example. In professional sports, like a locker room is a big deal, keeping morale up. People's got to be able to get along to play together. Well, sometimes you have to let someone who does not fit that locker room walk, no matter how good they are, for the betterment of the team. And I feel like sometimes God had to do that to make sure, our group was good, where the media from the outside sees it as, they just let this amazing player walk, and they might not even say, it was bad for the locker room or whatever, and it usually comes out later, but, not bad-mouthing him, not doing anything else, but just enough to give them, to save the whole group versus that one person. So that's kind of where I went with that. Like, it was hard to...
I was like, my peripherals is like a total pivot toward me.
And that might not be what she's really asking, but yeah.
So, okay, this is the question I was thinking about. So what is she trying to ask here?
Sorry. My peripherals said this looked like a whole shift. Well, so one thing we got to understand is that in the ancient world, they thought more collectivistically. And so when you talked about family, you didn't talk about just mom and dad and the kids. You talked about the entire extended family together, because really in the ancient world too, you didn't move and build a house on the other side of town. You added on to your parents' house. And so, so even the concept of family is a lot bigger than what we do today. We just think of again, just the parents and the kids. And then sometimes mom and dad, or you may take in your wayward uncle or something like that. But as far as a community, they thought themselves as one. So even in a sense, your neighbors could parent your kids if they were acting out of line. Of course, we have some semblance of that in America as well. And so use that description to say that they thought more of themselves in forms of community rather than an individual. And so for someone to do something negative or bad could then impact the entire community, the entire family. It's especially more evident in an honor shame society, to where if the son messes up, that could impact dad's job and impact, how the family is treated in the community if they do something really stupid. And so that's what I think she's really getting at, is that since people represented a group, it then reflected on a group. But also on the other side, we also see evidences of, oh my goodness, I have got to be careful.
Yeah.
Of prophets and others who would repent for the people, who would, even though nobody else said, I'm sorry to God, the prophet or whoever repented themselves for everyone else. And then, God would then do whatever he promised through that person that he would do. There's looking at a different perspective, I think, is what she's definitely inviting us to do. That the people are much more connected. So we could actually probably use this podcast as an example. Mm-hmm. Say I say something really rude and mean, or something very off the wall, prejudicial. It impacts both of you too.
Sure. Yeah. Well, and that's where my head went. I mean, I struggle with thinking about them and their time. I go to us and our time. And one of the things that I thought about was right wing and left wing in our politics, because it doesn't matter if there's somebody really radical on either side, it pulls both of those groups to where nobody wants to believe in anything that group has to say because of a few. Mm-hmm. Well, and you can look at our church, same way, I guess, between the UMC and the GMC. But I don't know if that's where I was supposed to be going or not. Sometimes I jump too far in the future.
Let's use a school experience. So say like some kids at elementary school, teacher leaves the room, something breaks something. Teacher wants to know, what happened. If nobody says anything, nobody's going to recess.
Yeah.
So treating them as the whole, because, we frown on tattletaling, but the thing is, if you also, at the point of view of the teacher, it's like, okay, this is also a justice issue because, yes, we don't want anyone else to be punished for not doing something, but they could also say something. And so, again, viewing things individually versus as a group.
Yeah.
So
what are the positives implications out of that then?
Well, I think one of them is that there's deeper connection. It's not just you, your house, and mine, my house. We are family. I mean, I use the language on Sunday morning that we are a church family, and the fact that coming to this place, we should be able to feel as home with each other as we are at home, physically or literally. Yeah. And so I think it should be one of the positives. Now, of course, quite a bit of that is aspirational because, when you invite new people or there might be some conflict within a church, it's not perfect, but that is the kingdom agenda, I would say, as far as a positive. One of the positives.
Kind of went that way, but I didn't go completely that way.
And there's not really wrong answers with this either. That's good. That's the nice thing. It's kind of what we think. Well, but some of them are like when they straight up ask, who is this?
Let's use another little kid experience. Little league baseball. Say you had a horrible game. You just didn't do well, but the team won. Guess what the team gets to do? Go to Dairy Queen. But you had a rough game. Doesn't matter. You're on the winning team. You get Dairy Queen too.
Yeah.
Okay.
Coming full circle. I've been there. I'm usually that kid. Played real bad. Still got every once in a while got to win.
Does that help?
Sure.
Was that sarcasm?
Sure. Maybe a little.
Let's see. Your turn.
That's me.
I was like, I totally got lost here.
That's me. Question number 4. In Psalm 73 and Psalm 78, Asaph gives us 2 examples of what it's like to have a change in perspective. When his focus is on himself or others, he grows bitter toward God. When his focus on God and his goodness, he is humbled and repents. How have you seen this kind of transition play out in your own life, and can you think of a recent time when your mind was renewed?
I can just put, since we started this for the renewed part, I couldn't really think of anything that something like that has played out. But I mentioned it several times just with the loss of someone. I had a really hard time with that before, and now it's kind of like it's not God taking someone away from me because I did something bad. It's just part of life, and looking at it from a different light. So that's kind of how it renewed my mind, I guess, is, since starting this and really doing a deep dive, whereas before, I was just kind of reading because that's what I was supposed to do in Catholic school is we'd read something and it was get it done as quick as possible and move on. Where now it's really focusing on the word itself. So, I'm appreciative of our hour a week here.
I would ditto that. But I add that I feel I can be renewed every day for some reason. There's something that will always catch me. If I am focused on God or what he's doing in my life, I can be renewed every day.
That's right.
Yeah.
Well, and that's where I think when Romans 12, when Paul says, with the renewing of our mind, that verb tense there is a constant renewing. And so we're always in progress, or if we have a bad day, we may have taken 2 steps back, but we're still in progress. I'm there with him with Asaph. If my eyes are on me and myself and not on God, I tend to get a little frustrated, a little easier than I have. And as pastor's like, if they would just taken my advice, compared to be like, it's God's grace working on them, and it's them in their relationship with God. It has nothing to do with me, despite how awesome the advice of me. I'm walking that line.
Yes, you are.
But back to being serious. I've seen this transition play out many times in my own life. I mean, even today. I mean, even after 12 years of ministry. I mean, I'm not perfect. I have my bad days. Yeah. So just try not to show it as best as I can.
I will say one thing since we've started this and really got into renewing myself, I'm finding God in places I would not have found him before, or I started a new podcast, Sean Ryan Show podcast, and I sent you one of them.
That was a good episode. It was long, but it was
good.
Long,
but you kind of had to listen to the whole thing to get it. And I'm not going to get into all of that, but he's a military guy interviewing military and like-minded people. And within the last month or so, he started doing more of showing his faith. He was Catholic growing up. I have a very similar story to him, to be honest. Didn't really follow it, fell away from the church, and then here in just the last couple months had a revival and is bringing himself back to God. And he just had, can never remember the guy's name. He played Jesus in The Passion.
Jim Caviezel.
Yeah. Talking about his new movie and his I just listened to it on Monday, and his view on life, like if I'd never started listening to him 2 months ago, I would have never gotten this, and just how he kind of looks at life. Like he's turned down roles because it doesn't match his beliefs. Mm-hmm. And, he's gotten doing The Passion has hurt his career, but God told him, take the roles I send you is something he told him. He truly believes, and I have no reason not to. It's been amazing since I've opened my heart up, I guess, that the other things I've started taking in. And, I've mentioned several times just finding a video on Facebook or whatever so yeah, that's been a really cool experience here lately.
Number 5?
Yeah.
All right. Knowing that the Israelites will eventually go into exile, is it easier or harder for you to watch them wander off into sin repeatedly? Does it make it easier knowing God will bring them back to the land eventually? Would your perspective change if you were the one they were sinning against? Why or why not?
I had a really hard time with this question. I'm not gonna lie. I wanted to say that it's easier because I know what's coming, but again, it's harder because you're hearing it again. But at the same time, I don't know. I could not make my mind up on kind of where I'm at, so I'm going to say both. You know, there's times where it's easier, but then there's certain times where you hear it and it's like, come on, guys, like, let's get our stuff together. But I don't know. I can't quite, and I don't think it makes it any easier or harder that they're going to come back. But this one was just really hard to wrap my head around today, I guess.
They didn't know he was going to bring him back. Correct?
Well, in a sense, it was telegraphed. Because remember, in Deuteronomy, even, you know, when they get the warning from Moses, when you fall away. And so, and even at the end of Joshua, you know, and he says, you know, as for me and my house will follow the Lord. But when you fall, you know, there's a lot of telegraphing, but I don't think as human beings, like thinking of myself being in a position, it can come by so quick that we don't fully catch it or maybe fully understand it. So I think that would have been their case as well.
Well, it's discouraging to me that they keep doing it, but then I fast forward and I do the same thing. So I keep feeling like I fall away, knowing I'm doing that, and also knowing he'll take me back.
Yeah.
So there's some relief in that. But then when she asked, would my perspective change? I'm like, heck yes, I wouldn't put up with their crap. So I wouldn't be so,
forgiving.
No.
And that's why I'm happy
But
with
I'm
who
so
we
grateful that he is.
Yeah.
Again, I always fast forward and put it into my own perspective, and I'm like, yeah, thank goodness he does, because
I'm sorry.
We're doing
Don't
the
I
same
imagine
thing.
there's somebody who probably was being mean to you in your mind. You're outside. You're trying to be there, trying to be understand. You're trying to do it Christian, but in your mind, you're throat punching them.
I am.
I just saw a comedian on TikTok long ago, and he talks about a woman, you know, cursed at him, and he goes, "I don't curse out loud." I think we all have these moments, you know, just in our minds, we're just like, man, I would just really love to.
Yeah. I think I've seen that one too.
My sister sends me memes all the time that are pretty much that. She knows it will just hit the spot with me.
Yeah.
So I wouldn't
goodness.
be so good on that, but it's, like I said, it was discouraging. And they keep wandering off, but then so do we.
I think it can be discouraging. And from, again, I'm using my pastoral experience, I've had people come up to me and accuse me of trying to kill the church. I haven't had that happen here, but at previous churches, like, why are you trying to kill the church? Or you're just trying to kill the church. It's like, excuse me?
If you kill the church, you're on the job.
And sometimes it's not even something I did or is even within my control, but they of course, you're the pastor, and they, you know, they're on, you know, their laser pointed on you. And so, and that's where, you know, especially doing a lot of your own spiritual and mental and emotional work, to just like, you know, they're the one with the problem, and so they're the one with the problem. And sometimes there's nothing you are able to say to assuage that, and you just take it, and hopefully, like using a Cosby reference here, 1980s, BB's off of Buick, you know, bing, bing. No, that's a Reba reference. Sorry, mixing up. Bing, you know, just and not try to hold on to any of that stuff because that's more about them than it is about me. And so I think, you know, for all of us, we experience those moments where people are like that. It's one of those things we have to then learn ourselves. That's more about them than it's about you.
Where I'm from, it's being like a duck.
Being like a duck.
Let the water just roll off your back. I think it's off a sitcom somewhere, but I don't know where they stole it from. Yeah. So I use that one quite often.
Brock's character on Reba, BB's off of Buick. Bing.
Yeah.
Bing. Yeah. So, you know, perspective change. I think it just depends on, you know, how we're doing in our faith walk that day. Because I think when we're feeling really good and we're feeling really aware and feeling good with God, that we can can be a little more sensitive to those things. But again, if you're having a bad day, sometimes we just want to, we're throat punching somebody in our minds.
Yeah. Assault
Unless
in
you
your
like the
head is
karate
not
chop.
assault. Yeah.
I do not condone throat punching.
Mental. That's it.
This is where the renewing of the mind. We're working on that, so we're not throat punching people in our minds.
I seen someone the other day talked about when something like that happens, trying to change it mentally, and like, I don't think he used a word like praying for them, but like wishing them well. Like trying to change your mind mentally from being negative. Like, like I want to throat punch them for what they're saying, but more of, I wish them a really good time with this. We may not agree, but good luck. Trying to change yourself to think more positively. And don't always do that, but that's something where I feel like I've done since starting this, going back to the one before. In these harder situations, I've found myself being a little bit more forgiving or trying to be like, think through it.
Well, and that's where I think we talked a little bit last time about, or maybe a couple times ago, connection of spiritual maturity and mental and emotional maturity. Yeah. To where, having those moments where it's like, as you're growing spiritually, it's like, I know that's about them. I know that they're, they might be in a rough place or a bad place, or they're just looking for someone to lash out about. To where you look at some of the mental health stuff when it comes to family systems and being well differentiated. I mean, that's right there. Yeah. To where, the person with the problem is the person with the problem. If they're, trying to transfer or create anxiety for you because they're wanting to share that with you, and they need to do that on their own, or to work with somebody to take care of their stuff, not try to force their stuff onto somebody else. And so that's where, as pastors, we receive some of that training, but also learning the difference between it's like hand them off to a professional, because like, okay, you need to do a long walk with somebody to help you work on your stuff. And it's not to say work on their stuff in a bad way, but to really help them to grow, to improve, and for them to discover freedom from all of that as well. Because some of that can be so, being stuck in that can be so devastating, and just, add on to all the stuff they're already carrying. But they have to decide to work on it.
My wife could come in and talk for hours on that. So, but yeah.
I guess where her and I get along, we have a lot of laughs when it comes to working with people. Yeah.
All right, are we on 6?
Number 6. I think, is it me?
It's me.
It's you. Okay.
Yep. Read Psalms 92, 1 and 2 aloud. I have it here. Okay. The psalmist says, it's good to bookend our days with praise. What are some of the ways you've incorporated the practice of praise into your day? There's new things you're excited to try.
Oh, you want Psalm 92:1?
I got it right here.
Okay.
I did it earlier. And it's 92 and a song for the Sabbath day. It is good to praise the Lord and to make music to your name, O Most High, proclaiming your love in the morning and your faithfulness at night. One of the things Amy and I have inputted into our children, I can say children now, we say the Lord's Prayer with Reese every night. And here lately, when I've been doing it by myself since Rory's been around, I've been trying to tell her, we're doing this to be thankful to God for our health, for Rory coming, and everything else. So trying to instill that we can be thankful for the good things. So hopefully my daughter can do one thing that I've just started doing from the beginning, praising for the good things and not just asking at the bad. So that's something new I've been doing, and it's been nice to do with her. And you can ask Stephen Verla. Reese really gets into the Lord's Prayer at church now because she likes to do it with accents, and because we do it, she likes to change her voice when we say it, so it's fun. And at about 2.5 years old, almost 3 next month, she can do it all by herself without anything. So it's
very cool,
very cool thing to do. So it's very proud of her for that. So, yeah.
I don't know that I have anything new or excited to try. I'm open for suggestions.
Yeah.
But I feel like I can praise from the beginning to the end, just even in the sunrises to the sunsets, to the rain that we received, to any of those things. I find the beauty and things that he has provided.
One of the things I've done, and I've gone through a season of it with my prayer time, is that I'll put on my headphones and just, go through like an hour of praise music. Yep. And originally it was just to keep it to myself. But there's times, I'm just belting it out with whoever.
Yeah.
And I was nervous. Sometimes I'd come to the realization that sometimes, the walls in your house are not that thick.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And at our previous church, where I would do this and I would walk back and forth, is that on the other side of the wall is, the yard to where the neighbors would hang out. And I would not know that they're out there until I was done, until I hear the kids laughing. And I say, well, if I can hear the kids giggling, and here I was belting out, an hour's worth of songs. I mean, they're not done well. They probably, but anyways, it was just one of those things where focusing on, what the lyrics were saying and making it part of prayer time I had fun with it. So,
and that's one thing my wife has started doing more, is listening to more praise music, like during the day.
So that's all I do. I mean, in my car, it's Caleb. Yeah. Just always has been. It's the only music I listen to.
So, and it's been nice to hear it. I'm a podcast person at heart, so like I move more towards that and trying to find God in the little things. Mm-hmm. But it is nice. I've started noticing it a little bit more, and I've actually been getting praise songs from my podcast. So I was actually going to send one to Sarah and you to put in, hopefully in the rotation, because it's actually the one that was in that podcast I sent you. Oh. The song that he kind of broke down to. So 10,000 Ways, I believe, is what it is. So it's a good one. But yeah, I've grown to enjoy it a lot more. As a kid, it's like, I don't want to listen to this. But then realizing that it's more than just the hymns we sang on Sunday mornings. So, that's been a big growth for me as well.
Yeah, I remember in college, one of the things we'd do when we'd have to just get out of town, because there wasn't really much to do in Wilmore, Kentucky. As much as I love Asbury, it's got it's got a Subway, a grocery store. And so sometimes you just need to get on campus and just do something. So we would just drive around and we would blast Toby Mac. Yeah. So that's just, just a memory that popped up.
Yeah.
Anyways.
It's fun.
Number 7. In Scripture, we see 3 accounts of Saul's death, which include 2 different versions of how it happened. One told by the authors of Scripture in 1 Samuel 31, 3-6, and 1 Chronicles 10, 3-6, and one told by the Amalekite sojourner in 2 Samuel 1, 6-10. Out of context, these accounts seem to contradict each other. How does the inclusion of all 3 stories help us understand the truth and teach us the importance of reading in context?
I'm going to pass the skip. This was over my head.
Well, then we're going to go to the history book.
Well, so I went back and I reread the stories just to refresh myself. And, the 1 Samuel and the 1 Chronicles match. Yeah. And so, there's no discrepancy, but there's a discrepancy with the report from the Amalekite sojourner. But so to note that, so as she talks about context, we got to know that it's not a Jewish person giving a report, it's an Amalekite. An Amalekite who's also been in conflict with Israel and has his own agenda, and especially when he goes and makes his report to David, who then he might have a specific agenda and trying to maybe butter up to David. And so taking all of those things into context, we can see that probably the report from 1 Samuel and 1 Chronicles is what happened, and there was an agenda behind the report in the second Samuel. And so that does not create a contradiction then, so to speak. It just, reveals that the Amalekite had
some other motive.
Yeah. And even when I went back and read it and thought about how he said it too, it was like, oh, he's probably saying, oh, David, look at what I did for you. And of course, David's like, no, that's you just killed the Lord's anointed. Now we're going to kill you. Of course, that's not what happened at all. Yeah. And so I think the context, then we can understand the full story that's going on. We know what happened, and then of course we have a report from an Amalekite who came in with a different motive, with maybe trying to get something out of a lie, maybe gift, position in David's cabinet. I don't know. Who knows? Yeah. I don't know if that cabinet's went in the kingdoms, but
surely they had
making
advisors.
Those modern day references.
Yeah.
She had made the comment in our book too that the same story survived 500 years. I mean, it hadn't changed, and that's kind of what I went off of too. I'm thinking, he was just trying to receive favor by David, but.
And that is one of the things I'm really, not to do the question, but starting to really, is that the Bible is very historically accurate. Like, it doesn't change like some of the other books people follow. From my understanding, I've never read them, so I'm not going to say it, but we have proof that things have happened, and that's something that's really coming. Like, I always believed, but I can now, if an atheist walked in here today and said that this doesn't, like, I would have proof to say, no, like, we need to read this and it'll follow. So nothing to do with the question, but it's a thought I had and I had to spit it out.
Oh, you're good. All right. Favorite God shot?
Well, I'll start. I had day 113, and it goes. The tiny details of these three men's lives reveal more about God to us today. In this trio, we have someone who is seen to be praised, Nimrod, the mighty hunter, someone identified more by the things around them than by anything he's done personally. Peleg, the wallflower, someone who's known for bringing trouble and death to God's people with his idolatry. Achan, God used Sorry, it was a weird punctuation. God uses every story, from the great to the terrible, in people who have never done anything historically significant. We are all written into God's story, into his story of redemption. He sees us all. The genealogies remind us of that. They may be boring, but he is not. He is where the joy is. We kind of mentioned this, I mentioned this in the first question, but God uses everyone, good or bad, to hopefully push him in his direction. And that's something I'm starting to learn a lot more of. And then I just hope us as a group here, just by trying to get the word out, are being on the good side. We're not just, bystanders of all this. So that is one of the reasons I love him. So that's it.
My God shot was day 117. The fact that this chapter exists at all tells us something about God and his character. He intentionally put this here to help reestablish people in the land he gave them that they'll someday give up and that he'll eventually bring them back to. It not only shows us his forethought, but it also shows his passion for restoration and redemption. He's so patient and generous with them, even when they break his heart. But just like these genealogies, this kind of love isn't just historical. It impacts us today. This is how God interacts with each of his kids. He made us. We went astray. Then he paid the ultimate price to buy us back, death on a cross. He planned it all before it even happened, just like with the Israelites. This chapter of genealogies is so much more than just names. It's a testament to his abundant kindness and his plan for restoration and redemption. He's where the joy is. And I think when we read the First Chronicles 6, that one did really hit me because it was just names after names after names. But when I read her part of it, I thought, oh, I mean, it clicked that he was putting everybody back into their same groups, and he didn't have to, but he was. And so he was restoring, and it would be just like, your heritage. I mean, I'm a craft, I'll always be a craft, and I take pride in that from the time that we came over on the ship from Russia. I mean, that's just how I feel about that. And so I just thought for him to take that much pride and thought into putting us all back where we belong, whether we were the musicians or we were taking care of this part of the land or that part of the land. I just thought that it was a detail he didn't have to do.
And one of the things that I came to appreciate that, along with which your observation, was that Israel they'd forgotten to celebrate Jubilee when any land that was lost was supposed to be returned. And so with this reorganization, now there's a record. And then we know who, and so just add into that. All right, I had day 116. All three of today's Psalms all pertain to the direction of our eyes. If our eyes are on others or ourselves or our desires, inevitably we'll lose sight of God. In Psalm 73, Asaph's eyes are on himself and others. Some say comparison is the thief of joy, but here it seems that comparison is also the thief of faith. It prompts us to doubt God's goodness. In Psalm 77, Asaph's eyes are on himself and his struggle, but he repents. He turns his eyes, reminding himself of God's faithfulness. He preaches God's light to his darkness. In Psalm 78, the Israelites' eyes were on their idols, their current desires. Asaph encourages them to teach their hearts the history of who God has been to them. May God take our eyes off others, off our problems, off ourselves, and off our desires, and fix them on him, because Asaph knows, and we know, that he's where the joy is. I noticed that there was a lot of reference to the Exodus story, and that part of Israel, of course, for them, because we just celebrate 4th of July, for them, that was their 4th of July. Of course, it was a big, long event. And so for me, as I was reading the God Shot, how important of the renewing of our minds and thus our mindset is on how we view our problems, how we view ourselves, how we view other people, and ultimately how we view God. And so that just kind of just really reinforced for me a lot of things I think about when it comes to mindset and our own spiritual growth and development. So,
yeah.
All right. Any other thoughts, questions, feelings, epiphanies, revelations?
I've shared enough today, I think.
Are you tapping out?
For right now. I got next week. I got to bring stuff into, I guess. I'll save it for then.
And I'll ask for forgiveness for that. Saying that.
Well, I hope you had a great time with us tonight, as we did. And it was a blast. It was a hoot and holler. So next week we'll get into week 18, which we go back and forth, as she says, and so we'll be into 2 Samuel chapter 5, and then we get back into 1 Chronicles chapters 11 to 16, and then another whole host of Psalms, which I will put in the description box. So again, 2 Samuel 5, and then back into 1 Chronicles 11 through 16, along with a list of Psalms.
Doesn't make it easy on us on these last couple weeks here.
No.
Looks like we got a little bit, but it'll be good.
Absolutely. All right. Take care. See you next week. God bless.
See ya.